Am I the asshole for pranking my daughter at a restaurant? Earlier this week, we were at a Mexican restaurant, and I ordered an extra side of sour cream. When it arrived, my daughter asked what it was. I laughed and told her it was marshmallow fluff as I put it on my burrito. She gave me a skeptical look, laughed, and said, "You're lying, Mom. There's no way." We went back and forth for a while, with me encouraging her to try it if she didn't believe me. She kept laughing and insisting she knew I was lying. Finally, she grabbed the container, dipped her finger in, tasted it, and immediately gagged and spit it into her napkin. She exclaimed that she knew I was lying and scolded me for deceiving her before we continued with our meal. My mom kept giving me disapproving looks, and yesterday she told me it was wrong to prank my daughter like that. She said my daughter should be able to trust me 100% and that it was mean. I explained that we had been laughing the whole time and that my daughter has been telling her friends how I pranked her and how funny it was. I don't think it's a big deal. It was just family fun, but my mom is making a huge fuss over it. I asked her dad if he thought it was mean, and he said she should have known better than to think there was marshmallow fluff on a burrito. ETA. I have answered this a few times, so I'm just gonna put it up here now. I checked in with my daughter on the drive home that night and I asked her if she was okay with that and if she was upset. And she said it was a great prank and she definitely wasn't upset. The only thing that upset her was she only meant to get a tiny swipe, not a massive glob. We are very open with our feelings in my family and she has no problem expressing if she feels that she's been wronged or if her feelings have been hurt. And she did get me back the next night when we had pizza. She switched out a ranch cup for a cup of mayonnaise and laughed herself silly. Not the asshole. Your mom is overreacting. All that matters is the people involved found it funny, before and after. No harm done. Not the asshole. And that my daughter has been telling her friends how I pranked her and how funny it was. This makes it okay. Your mom is the Not the asshole. You know your daughter. She wasn't upset or harmed, and found it humorous. Not a biggie at all. Not the asshole. My mom did something similar with me when I was small and it's one of my fondest memories. She was baking something, and had vanilla essence with her. It smelt so good and I kept smelling around her till she asked if I wanted a taste. I of course said yes, and she took a tiny droplet and let me taste it. I gagged, she laughed. She to this day asks if I want to have a taste whenever she bakes. It's one of my favorite stories to share. Not the asshole, it was funny and not harmful. It's good to have some whimsy in life. Whenever I see prank in the headline, my finger is poised over the Y to render a verdict. This was completely harmless and light banter. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for shaving my head without telling my family? 19F, just finished my freshman year of college. My grandmother, 82F, is, unfortunately, in the later stages of cancer and is not expected to live much longer. We were very close when I was a child, much of which was because I am her only granddaughter, which is something she had always wished to have. One of the ways we bonded was through my hair. I had it very long, all the way down my back, and she loved how it looked like hers did when she was a kid. I was repeatedly told my whole life, especially by my grandmother, to never cut it as it was beautiful. I came out as a lesbian at 16 and started to take on more of a masculine appearance, and in turn, my self-confidence became a lot stronger, but it also definitely alienated me from my family. They're not super homophobic by any means, but they're definitely uncomfortable with the idea of being gay, especially because I'm the only girl. Through those last few years of high school, despite wearing masculine clothes and getting an undercut in my hair, I still kept my super long hair. My parents didn't love this new look, but never tried to stop me. Going to college far away from where I grew up has allowed me to embrace the look I'm going for a little more, and the obvious step for me was to cut my hair. It was something that I had wanted to do for years, and so in April, right after I returned to campus from spring break, I had a friend of mine shave all of my hair off, knowing I wouldn't have to face the consequences with my family for another month or so when I came home from college. I love my shaved head. I feel so much more like myself without all that hair weighing me down, and I donated all of my hair. I was incredibly nervous for my family to see me without my hair. I was too nervous to tell my parents, so it came as a shock to them when my dad picked me up at the airport and saw me.
His immediate concern was that this trip home could very well be the last time I see my grandmother, and it would absolutely break her heart to see me without my hair.
When I got home, my mom was absolutely livid.
She said that it was incredibly selfish of me to do this when I knew I was going to come see my grandmother who loved my hair, and that it was unfair to have her last image of her only granddaughter being, in her words, an ugly tomboy hairdo.
I feel absolutely awful, because while I did this for me and I feel great about the haircut, it breaks my heart to think about my grandmother and what I did to her by doing this, as the first thing she always used to do when she saw me was tussle my hair and compliment it. My parents are still very angry at me, and so are my brothers, because my grandmother is our matriarch and we are all trying to do everything we can to make her happy and comfortable at the end of her life. They are all saying that I should have at least waited for her to pass first before I cut my hair. Am I the asshole for not considering this when I chose to shave my head? Not the asshole. Your body, your choice.
I'm sorry you have family like that. Your grandma loves your hair.
WTF, that's weird as hell. Tell grandma you shaved it so you could donate it to kids with cancer in honor of her. And tell the rest to shove off. Not the asshole.
You did nothing wrong. It is not your fault that your family are a bunch of homophobes who do not love you but only care for the image of the dutiful little girl they have in their heads.
You are completely fine.
Not the asshole if grandma says something about it being missing. Tell her you donated it to someone who can't grow their own beautiful hair and leave it at that. I think you being there is what she'll remember, and you'll remember.
Not the asshole.
You're an adult, you can cut your hair however and whenever you like.
Your grandmother loves you more than your hair.
Just tell her that you cut it to feel more confident in who you are, and that you donated to help others feel more confident in themselves. The rest of your family can STF you.
Not the asshole. If you didn't think about it, you didn't think about it. If your grandma didn't accept gay people, would you try to accommodate that? I think if you'd thought about it and decided to go it anyway, it probably would have been best to wait.
However, it's right to do what you want with your hair.
Am I the asshole for being snarky when my mother-in-law walked through the house unannounced? My living situation needs explaining. My house is built on a hillside and street level is the top floor. Bedrooms are 1 floor down.
Below that is a basement unit where my retired mother-in-law lives.
She has her own bathroom, kitchen, laundry, etc.
To leave the house, she can use an outside staircase which goes all the way up to street level.
Or she can come through our space where there's a door between her unit and the upper levels.
We bought the house together for financial reasons. The agreement was that my mother-in-law would use the outside stairs when the weather was nice, and use the inside stairs if it was raining or snowing. But she'd have to text us and give us reasonable warning to avoid awkward encounters. E.g., give me enough time to make sure I'm not going to the bathroom with the door open.
Fast forward. My wife and I now have 2 kids, ages 3 and 5. My mother-in-law needed back surgery around 4 years ago. Since that surgery, she's exclusively used the inside stairs to leave, and I've bit my tongue and not brought up our original agreement. The main issue is that she's very inconsistent in texting us. When she does text, it's typically with 2-4 minutes of warning. I live in constant anxiety listening for that door to open. When I hear it, the first thing I do is check my phone. I'd say there's a text message around half the time.
Yesterday, we took our kids out on a day trip and noticed that my mother-in-law parked her car in a way that took me a few attempts to get our van clear.
It was also very close to the mailbox. My wife texts her mom and asks her to move her car. Literally just 3-4 feet would avoid an angry note from our grouchy mail carrier. We get home 7 hours later and the car hasn't moved, so my wife calls out my mother-in-law for that. 2 more hours pass and I hear the door open. I check my phone and there's a "coming up" text from my mother-in-law at 4:59 p.m. It's 5:01 p.m. when I hear the door. Afterward, my wife made it a point to remind me that her mom texted. Likely because I was visibly annoyed. I respond in an admittedly sarcastic tone, "Yeah, 2 minutes ahead." So my wife gets angry at me and lectures me about how her mom never does anything right, how it's uncomfortable for her to be in between us in an awkward situation, etc. My wife has no issue with her mom coming up without warning. My kids have grown up with their grandmother coming up without warning. I obviously didn't grow up with her. Did I overreact to how this went down?
Can't you just lock the inside door?
There's another exit on her floor, so it wouldn't be a safety issue. You are the asshole.
Why did you buy a single-family house with someone towards whom you have this attitude?
You are okay to get the financial benefit of a relationship but don't want to see the person. And people not always make plan to go out 30 minutes before the leaving. In my house, I go out anytime I want. Just think, I have a 20 minutes timer and my door lock to open. I would be mad as hell.
Like it or not, it is your wife's and your MIL's house. So, you cannot impose any rule by yourself. Assuming you consented to allowing your mother-in-law to move into this awkward layout house, you are the asshole. You knew that older folks have memory and mobility issues, so using the inside stairs was an inevitability. Ask your spouse to get an extra key to MIL's car in case it needs to be relocated.
Just let the old lady use your door. Jesus. You are the asshole.
Your mother-in-law also owns this house, but you're trying to act like her landlord. You agreed to this situation. You let this text to use the stairs thing fester, and it sounds like you're just looking for things to pick apart.
You are the asshole. She did text before she came in. You just didn't check your phone. 2 more hours pass and I hear the door open. I check my phone and there's a "coming up" text from my mother-in-law at 4:59 p.m. It's 5:01 p.m. when I hear the door.
Are you saying that you want your mother-in-law to plan out her entire day and text you ahead of time when she will be leaving? Seriously?
It sounds like you were just hard up on not liking the living arrangements that you all agreed to. She's texting you according to plan. Am I the asshole for telling my sister she was wrong to think she could pressure our dad into anything?
My sister, 26 female, became obsessed with our dad meeting his birth family when she was 14.
Our dad was adopted as an infant and we always knew about this.
Dad always knew too.
Even though he was raised when it wasn't as common to know from day one, he always knew, and he always saw his parents who brought him up as his real parents, and he said he never had an interest in knowing his birth family. My dad's in his 60s now and never had an interest in finding out more about birth relatives. My sister brought it up a lot of times over the years and our parents did speak to her about it being Dad's decision whether he meets them or not. But she was told it would be her choice to do so once she was of legal age. For a few years after turning 18 she wanted it to be done by Dad, but then during COVID she decided she was too desperate to know and she went searching for relatives and found out Dad's birth mother as well as 5 birth half-siblings from his birth mom existed and were alive. Dad was still not interested. My sister went to meet with them. Then she wanted to include them in the family. But Dad said no. And if she wanted to spend time with them as a family, it was her right. He would not be involved and he would not let her bully or pressure him into that. She was so upset. She continued having a relationship with Dad's birth relatives and tried working on Dad, but he has not given in. My sister really wanted to invite them to Dad's 65th birthday party and Dad told her she could, but it would be a party minus him. My sister was so frustrated and said Dad was too stubborn, and I told her she was wrong to think she could pressure him into doing anything, but especially something so big and personal. I told her it's his decision ultimately and she needs to accept that she can't force his hand on this. I also warned her if she did try, she could lose Dad. She told me I should be on her side and I can't tell her what she can and can't do, and I shouldn't speak to her like I'm her parent when I'm not and she's a grown-ass woman. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole if she says you can't tell her what to do because she's a grown-ass woman. Why on earth does she think she can tell your dad what to do when he's a grown-ass man? He's made his decision clear, and he's not obligated to meet them if he doesn't want to. She needs to accept that and stop pushing this. Not the asshole. Not every child who is adopted wants to meet their biological family, and that's okay. Your sister is not respecting your dad's feelings and is making this about her. She was not the one who was put up for adoption. If she wants a relationship with her paternal, biological family, great, but she should not force this on anyone else. She is being selfish about her own desires. If she's a grown-ass woman, why doesn't she respect the fact that her father is a grown-ass man and stop nagging? Not the asshole. Your sister can spend time with your dad's biological relatives if she wants, but it's weird and extremely inappropriate for her to try to force him to. Not to be all. Kids should always respect their parents, but this is disrespectful as hell for her to do to her dad. If she doesn't want to be talked to like a child, she can stop acting like a pouty child. I can't tell her what she can and can't do, and I shouldn't speak to her like I'm her parent when I'm not and she's a grown-ass woman. Lol. I can just see her saying this, hands on hips.
But she doesn't sound or act like a grown-ass woman. Plus the hypocrisy, when she's been trying for years to tell your dad what to do. Nothing you said was out of line, she just didn't want to hear it.
Not the asshole. A grown-ass woman understands that no means no. Not the asshole.